Okay, so today we're going to talk about healthcare acquired infections, and we're going to use the model of an iceberg. I think we've all heard it before about how you can see only 10% of what's going on above the surface on an iceberg, and the rest of it, the other 90%, is what's going on below the surface. And that's very similar to what happens with healthcare acquired infections. So, what we see up top, and we're going to roll some videos throughout this to help us promote our understanding. So, what we see is the actual infection. So, we see, when the patient gets sick, when they have a surgical site infection, or when they go home and have to come back to the hospital because they have an infection. So, we're going to get a baseline understanding of what we see above the surface here. Okay, so now we understand what is above the surface when it comes to healthcare acquired infections. Now we can learn about uh, everything going on below the surface. So the first question we need to ask is, what should we look for? And what we need to do as healthcare providers is to observe the early signs of infection. And so here we have a nurse that's going to talk about the various signs and symptoms of infection that we might see early in a post-surgical patient or somebody developing a urinary tract infection, um, or something even more serious than that. And so the next question we need to ask is, what should we be doing to break the chain of infection? And as another video will explain, we need a few important key things for an infection to spread. That's the actual pathogen, a route of transmission, and a viable host. And so when we do very simple, very basic things like washing our hands, we break that chain of infection. So now the third question we need to ask is, what should we know? Because we know what to look for, we know one thing we should be doing, and now we need to know what we should know as healthcare providers. And this involves having a basic understanding of how infections spread and the undergirding understanding of microbiology. So each of these three factors that are below the surface of healthcare acquired infections all play a role in how we can stop the spread and reduce the rates of healthcare acquired infections. And below we have some resources for where our videos came from and the type of content that we can use to further educate ourselves. Thanks.